Introducing Cabinet Refacing to Go, the most complete step-by-step video about refacing kitchen cabinets for do-it-yourselfers. We will transform this 20-year-old oak kitchen into an updated, elegant beauty, showing you every step along the way. Let's start by identifying every single door. We will send you a custom drawing of your kitchen to facilitate this process, if you provide us with pictures. Every door will be numbered from left to right, starting with the upper cabinets and ending with the bottom doors. We want to reduce your chances of missing anything. Now let's start measuring. It is easier to read a measuring tape on the inside of the door, because usually it's not molded. When writing down dimensions in the cabinet industry, we enter the width first and the height second. Please keep in mind that we can work with either the metric or imperial measuring system, which is inches, so please pick the one that works best for you. Measuring special doors, as in the case of a 45-degree or 90-degree corner cabinet, does not require any special technique. When measuring a bifold door, which might be present even in your upper cabinets, please measure the two halves as individual doors. If you have special doors that are not described in this video, send us pictures and we will help you order them. When measuring doors to order, please skip drawer fronts for now. For your convenience, we will treat them separately in the next section of the video. Measuring drawer fronts uses the same technique as the doors, so please make sure that the width is written down first and the height second, since, contrary to doors, as you can see, the width of drawers is nearly always greater than the height. Don't assume that the height is the same in a bank of drawers. It might be different. It is always a good idea to play it safe and measure them all one by one. Now we want to show you how to take measurements in a special case, if you wish to transform a double-door base cabinet into a nice bank of drawers. All you need to do is measure the width of the two doors together when they're both closed, and this will be the overall width of the drawer fronts. For the drawer heights, you can match the other existing bank of drawers, or put in larger drawers for pots and pans. Watch this example to understand how to easily calculate their dimensions. Take the height of the door. Deduct the height of the top drawer front matching the other bank. From that number, deduct 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters twice, because you'll have two gaps, above and below the drawer. The last operation is to divide the number by 2, and you will have the height of the fronts for the two deep drawers for your pots and pans. If you still want to use the existing drawer boxes, move to the next step. If you want to order our soft closing drawer boxes, you need to measure the horizontal opening of the cabinet box. Please measure the width within the walls of the cabinets and write it down on the provided sheet. We will calculate, cut, and ship your drawer box to you, ready to be assembled and installed. The distance between the bottom door edge and the center of the hinges on the new doors needs to be different than the distance for your existing doors. We want to be sure that your new hinges won't be screwed into the old holes, allowing the new screws to come out fairly soon. We use 3.5 inch or 90 millimeter as a default. So if your existing distance is close to our default distance, please write down 3 inches. In the case that you have islands or peninsulas, we will show you how to deal with their back panels first. Please note that sheets of plywood are a maximum of 4 feet wide, with the wood grain going vertically. Always write down width first and height second. In this case, we are dividing the back of the peninsula into 3 equal panels of 35 3/8 inch width, with the grain running vertically, planning to install moldings to cover the seams, since the 48-inch width limitation doesn't allow us to do it any other way. For back panels, we use 1/4-inch plywood material, while for side panels, you could use either 1/4-inch plywood panels or 5/8 inch boards. When you send us your pictures, we will help you decide which option is best for your specific situation. Now let's measure the width and height for each 5/8 inch board that will cover every exposed side panel. On the measurement sheet that we will prepare for you, in the column for 5/8 inch boards, make sure you write the quantity of pieces for every size. In this case, we need to consider the full board height, even for partially exposed panels. Don't worry about not having space. We will show you how to create it later. To avoid mistakes, be sure to observe the panels that have an odd height too. While the height of the panel matches the height of the box, even for full-height cabinets like fridge panels and pantries. To measure the width, we suggest you add 7/8 of an inch, or 22 millimeters, to the depth of the cabinet box, so the thickness of the door will be flush with the edge of the 5/8 inch board. You'll be able to shave it if necessary when installing it. If you want to install under-mounted light valances and have the skills to tackle a job like this, you will need to own or rent a miter saw. Please understand that this step is not vital for cabinet refacing, and we recommend that you skip it if you are inexperienced with a miter saw. This is a specialized detail, and your kitchen will look stunning even without it. Measure the length of every side that forms the under perimeter of the upper cabinets, and add roughly 2 or 3 inches for cutting convenience. Write down quantity for every size. Please keep in mind that you could order longer pieces and optimize the cuts yourself and ignore our offer of pre-cutting every single piece. We offer it just so you are left handling smaller pieces when operating the miter saw. Opening one of the doors, measure the height of the toe kick, which will be the same for every piece. And then, just as you have done for the light valance, write down the different lengths on a list, adding a few inches to each for convenience. Please note that this material can be cut with a utility knife as an alternative to a miter saw. Fill in the order form, and before confirming, always ask us any questions you may have. We're here to help. Once the order is confirmed, it will be irreversible. We can't make any new changes, so let's work together to get everything right. Please make sure that you empty the cabinets before you start working. This is what we always do to protect the surfaces. It might be a little too much for a refacing job, but it makes our customers feel comfortable. Since this is your house, it will be your call. Using a cordless drill as a screwdriver, start the simple step of removing the doors. When dismounting the cabinet doors, always start by removing or unclipping the lower hinge first, so that the top one will hold the door attached to the cabinet box until the last screw is removed. If you decide to unclip, you will remove the hinge plates later. If you are using your old drawer system, unscrew the front of each drawer separately and immediately put the drawer box back into its specific slides. It is always better not to mix the drawers up, because even if they appear to be identical, they may have slight differences between them. Removing light valances is easy. Sometimes screws are accessible from inside the cabinet boxes, but most of the time, as in this case, they are underneath. On big pieces, it is always good to use a clamp for safety, so the fixture won't fall out before you're ready. Sometimes, caulking applied on the inside of the valance may require some forcing before it gives. Here, we want to start by showing how to shift upper boxes in case you need to create space for panels. Because safety is important, let's quickly remove any shelves so nobody gets hurt. For a cost-effective solution, as we did, you can build your own support frame to hold the weight of the cabinet box before unscrewing it. If you use your creativity, many things around the house can work as supports. Let's remove the filler so we will have the space to shift the boxes. In this case, these are fastened with screws, but sometimes they are nailed. Use a hammer if the filler doesn't come off even after removing all the screws. Then proceed with unscrewing the screws that hold this box attached to the other beside it. There may be screws coming in from the other side too in some cases. When starting to remove the screws from the back panel of the upper box, we recommend starting from the bottom. It is always safer to leave the top screw till last. Also, if you haven't removed the hinge plates yet, now is the time to do so. If required, let's use a scroll bar to create the space for the 5/8 inch panel. Please make sure no screws are left into the back wall or the sides. With the support stand always holding the upper box, slide in one of the panels. Leave the panels with the best finish for the more exposed areas. We recommend the use of 1-inch screws to fasten the panels. Start first by inserting screws from the cabinet box that has not been unscrewed, the cabinet that is still fixed in place beside the one you removed. The screw will go from the inside of the fixed cabinet's side wall into the 5/8 inch panel that you are holding in position, all lined up. Next, it is time to insert screws from the inside of the unattached box, so the new panel is squeezed between the two cabinet boxes. 4 screws per surface are more than enough, and use existing holes to avoid new ones if possible. As the next step, after making sure that everything is still lining up, proceed with mounting the cabinet box back onto the wall. Make sure the new panel sticks out about 7/8 of an inch from the edge and that it is consistent from top to bottom. When the door is installed, it will look flush from the panel. The filler needs to be back in place, so measure the new gap and cut it on a table saw. Fasten it using screws that are long enough to hold it secure, but not so long that they come through into the cabinet box and offer a safety risk. Any piece of scrap wood will work as a filler, and the piece doesn't have to fit perfectly. It's just a spacer and will be covered by veneer later anyway. Here, we are cutting away any caulking from the outside panel before shifting the other side to allow the installation of the second exposed panel above the cooktop. Everything is repeated again with the use of the support to hold the box. Please note that after shifting the cabinet box of 5/8 inches, when you attempt to use the old hole to drive the screw into the wall, you might not hit the stud in the wall anymore. If that's the case, aim left or right according to the direction the cabinet box was shifted. If the cabinet was shifted left, aim the screw a little to the right. Pick the 5/8 inch panels that have the best finish for the more exposed areas. We recommend that you use a quick grip clamp that has rubber contacts and so will not damage the finish. This will allow a more precise positioning of the panel before screwing it on. You might find that your kitchen already has the type of panels you will be installing. In some cases, just beside the fridge, like in this kitchen, and other cases everywhere. Proceed with the same routine explained earlier. Base boxes can present numerous situations where the 5/8 inch panels need some notching to be installed precisely. In this case, Mike is notching it out so the panel will go all the way up to the countertop, and it will stick out the 7/8 of an inch required to be flush with the doors. Because we are addressing a peninsula here, as you probably remember, we specifically measured for this double finished edge 5/8 inch panel to stick 7/8 of an inch as we showed from one side, and a 1/4 inch from the other side, so the 1/4 inch plywood will butt nicely against it when glued to the back of the peninsula. Please remember that it doesn't have to be precise. The decorative molding will cover everything. The fastening procedure is the same. Let's start from the wall when dealing with the back panels of peninsulas or islands. Shaping 1/4 inch boards around baseboards could seem difficult, but it can be done with a utility knife if no power tools are available. Mike has done this many times, so be inspired by the way he does it. But please understand that it doesn't have to be very precise. Give yourself a break and concentrate on using the knife safely. A bit of caulking later will cover everything. If you have an oscillating multi-tool with a flush cut blade, you could cut the baseboard using a piece of 1/4-inch scrap as a guide, and after spreading some PL Premium Construction adhesive evenly on the back of the panel, slide it into the gap and then apply some pressure to make sure the board has no problem adhering. Fasten it with 23-gauge pin nails. These nails will just provide a mechanical force to hold the panel in place until the construction adhesive dries. The holes left from these nails are very small, but even so, don't use too many on white surfaces. They will still show quite a bit. In this case, Mike has nailed more intensively only where decorative moldings will be installed to cover the seams and embellish the highly exposed peninsula. You can use a filler to hide the side panel of the stove opening to close that gap as much as possible. Before using screws, we suggest you pre-drill with a very small drill bit while holding the piece. Using a quick grip clamp will be more comfortable for you. This method will not only save you from buying an extra panel, but mainly it will help you avoid leaving big gaps between the stove and the cabinet. The other way to do this would be to treat it as any other side panel. The method we show here is the most preferred, usually for reasons of consistency. Our customer in this case wanted a filler, so we are finishing this side to match the left one. If you have ordered all the pieces for the base paneling roughly pre-cut, then start working from the longest piece and work your way down to the smallest one. Mark each piece with a pencil and cut it with your miter saw. A utility knife will do it too. Once you have tried it in place and seen that it fits nicely, apply some construction adhesive and nail it, using again the 23-gauge pin nails. The first step in veneering is to measure the upper cabinet boxes and write down all the different heights, creating groups. Then, for the same height group, list the different widths for every piece. This procedure will help you optimize the veneer and it will keep you organized. You have already learned that it is always the best idea to start working on the biggest piece first. When writing down heights, always add an extra inch, and for widths, at least an extra 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. When applying veneer, that extra material will save you a lot of frustration. Repeat this procedure for the lower boxes. To prepare for the gluing step, we suggest that all panels we have already installed are covered with masking tape. The glue we use is a water-based contact cement, solvent-free, and almost entirely odorless. Big chain hardware stores carry it. This water-based glue can be cleaned, but it is a lot more work than 5 minutes invested in masking. Start applying the contact cement on every vertical edge using a 2-inch wide foam brush, and keeping in mind that applying too much of it will not improve the performance, but instead will make the job messy. Spread the glue from top to bottom. Don't invade the horizontal edges, otherwise you will be adding extra work for when trimming the veneer. Make the coat as smooth as possible without leaving runs that will create a lump under the attached veneer when dry. Let's continue to the vertical edges of the base cabinet boxes with our first coat. While the first coat dries, we will be cutting pieces of veneer. If you have full-height boxes like pantries, cut those long pieces first using the full length of the sheet. In our example here, we don't have those, so we are cutting our tallest vertical first, marking and cutting the heights so we can focus on widths, one smaller sheet at a time. If you don't have a level or a straight edge, any straight piece of wood will do the job as a guide when cutting. Please play it safe and score the veneer at least 3 times without pushing the knife too much. When cutting for heights, always think ahead. Make sure you have the longest pieces covered before cross-cutting the sheet of PSA veneer. Mike is showing you how to cut the widths by getting one of the sheets we have already cut height-wise a few minutes ago. We recommend clamping one side of the straight edge, and after making sure that the width is even from top to bottom, While putting pressure on the straight edge, we can score with confidence at least 3 times. We suggest you sort the different widths, knowing where they belong, before starting the veneering step. The time that we needed to cut all the pieces of veneer was great for the edges to be ready for the second coat of contact cement. We suggest you go easy with it now to avoid runs, and keep moving the brush so you don't get a buildup of contact cement to show through the veneer later. Move from top to bottom just as we did for the first coat. Remove the masking tape only after scoring right on the corner with the knife. This will avoid peeling off the glue with it. Once we make sure where everything belongs, we will start to apply the veneer from the first edge where we have already applied the glue. Be aware that contact cement will give you 0 tolerance for moving the veneer once it has made contact. So, as Mike is showing here, peel off only a small part of the paper back, and then place the veneer using the straightest edge of the piece against the protruding 5/8 inch gable. As you gradually move from top to bottom, slowly peel the paper back off. Then, with the roller, put on a lot of pressure to make sure the pressure-sensitive adhesive on the back of the veneer and the contact cement start to bond. The roller that we will provide you is a more user-friendly version of this one. Use the same technique for the other edges, not worrying about the extra veneer. It will be trimmed later. When we have cabinet boxes that meet on a 45-degree angle, as we have in this case, we veneer it with 2 separate pieces. The widest piece gets applied first, making sure that the straightest side of the 2 line up where the 2 boxes meet. Slowly go from top to bottom as we described before. Before attaching the second piece, Mike is showing us a little trick. He is touching up the edge that meets with the other piece of veneer with a touch-up marker. This is not a must-do, but we like to show it to you in case you are as picky as we are. This smaller piece, as you can see, has a little more mobility than the bigger one. That's why we suggest to apply it after the big one. It will allow you to cover more imperfections. The same technique and the same tips serve for the bottom edges, so just continue there. And don't forget to use the roller. It is an extremely important step that is often forgotten. Start trimming the veneer with a utility knife, making sure the blade is always sharp. We find that going from top to bottom allows more control on the knife when trimming. Remove any excess contact cement, which by now should be looking like chewing gum. Use 120 or 150 grid sandpaper on an angle, but be careful to avoid scratching the veneer and the inside of the box. In this case, we had to veneer the horizontal front edges because they did not match the inside of the cabinets. If this is the case with your project, you should also proceed with this step. If not, skip to the light valance installation step. Probably 90% of the kitchen cabinets we have refaced have the horizontal matching the inside. and so didn't require the horizontal piece of veneer. If this is your case, you can still proceed with this step if you want the top and bottom front edges to match the verticals. It is extra work, but might be worth it for you. As we show here, quickly proceed with the first coat of glue. Start from the upper boxes and move to the base ones. While the first coat dries, prepare the pieces of veneer, quickly pre-cutting them to a slightly bigger size than the opening, so you don't have to work with an unnecessarily big piece. You have learned by now how important control is when veneering. Quickly prepare all the pieces and leave them in the correct boxes to speed up the process. The same way we did when we were veneering vertical edges, please make sure you treat any corner cabinet box edges as separate pieces. Never attempt to do it all with one piece. Pick the straightest extremity of the two and start attaching the veneer from right or left. Choose what feels more comfortable. Use the square to cut off the excess veneer. Score as many times as you need and don't force the knife to cut it at the first attempt. It is similar to what we did for the verticals, although we recommend now to trim it at the same time so every cabinet box has the veneering step completed. If you experienced cracking of the finishing when trimming real wood veneer, switching the cutting direction will solve the problem. Once done with veneering, the messy work is done, so you can start cleaning up the boxes and putting the shelves back in place. To be able to install under-mounted light valances, you need a miter saw, which you can even rent, but most importantly, you will need the skills and experience to use it. For safety reasons, we discourage anyone to attempt this step unless very experienced in using this tool. Here, Mike is using the touch-up marker to cover the unfinished profile before gluing the mitered pieces. This will help in case the join doesn't come out as good as you want it. To make the light valances installation easier, we recommend you have a couple of quick grip clamps handy. Once you are happy with the position, Mike likes to make it flush with the front edge. However, if you recess it 1/8 of an inch, it will give you a little bit of leeway in case the piece is a little warped. With a 1/8 inch drill bit and the valance in position, drill 3 holes for a cabinet this size. And with a number 6 screw, 1 1/4 inches, or 1 inch in length, fix the light valance to the cabinet box. To install the side pieces, we fasten an L-shaped bracket with a number 6 screw, 5/8 of an inch in length, about 1 inch away from the straight end. Fast bonding double component glue, we use a miter bond that you can buy online or at your hardware store, is used to bond the mitered ends to each other. We recommend that you apply the liquid component on one end and the sprayed hardener on the other end. Watch Mike to get an idea about the amount to use. Hold them tight without moving for 15 to 30 seconds. The next step is to drive the screws into the bottom of the cabinet box through the L-shaped bracket previously attached to the piece. Repeat this for every seam and you will have the valances installed in no time. Mike is touching up some exposed unfinished wood with a touch-up marker because he likes to install the valances flush with the edges. But if you recess it slightly as mentioned before, you won't need this step. Decorative moldings are ordered slightly longer than the actual size needed so they can be cut precisely one by one. Please don't assume that every piece will be the same height. Mike is cutting and pre-fitting them, making sure they fit nicely before using glue or nails. He has decided to work with the first 3 pieces first. Before applying the construction adhesive, make sure not to mix up where each piece belongs. Most moldings have a deeper surface in the center to absorb the glue that overflows when the pieces are squeezed together. Because of this, always apply the adhesive on the central part of the piece, just as shown. Have the air compressor charged and the 23-gauge nail gun ready to go. And when you're happy with the position of each piece, fire the gun, picking spots of the molding where the nail will be less obvious. And don't overdo it. Mike is using only 6 nails because he knows their job is only temporary until the construction adhesive cures. We're using 1-inch long nails, in this case, because he is shooting it into the thin side of the molding. If using 1 3/8-inch nails, we recommend shooting them into the thickest part of the molding. Otherwise, the nail will probably come through the other side. As you can see, because these 2 pieces are attached, Mike is nailing them at the same time. Once he is happy with the way they both fit on the peninsula and with each other. Before nailing these last 3 pieces, Mike is making sure the distances are equal between every piece on the floor and up against the countertop. Use wood putty to fill the small pin nail holes, and if needed, you can even color it with a touch-up marker. When touching up pin nail holes, every color is a little different. By experimenting different ways of doing this, we have become fairly good at it. We will be happy to share what we know about working with the particular color you have picked. It is unreasonable to expect the hole to disappear completely, so please go easy on yourself. With some colors, it is even better to avoid touching the holes up at all. This is how beautiful your peninsula or island will end up looking. Not bad at all. To install the doors, lay out a power screwdriver, number 6 wood screws, 5/8 inches long, a Phillips head hand screwdriver, the new hinges, and a utility knife to be ready for the most exciting step of this entire project. Now you will start to see your hard work really pay off. Please be extremely careful when opening the packages with the knife. As you can see, Mike is cutting the tape with the knife almost flat on the door to avoid scratching anything. The cabinet doors have small pre-drilled holes that will provide a perfectly square, fast installation of the hinges, and will keep the wood from cracking. Always attach all the hinges to the door you're working on before moving on to the next door. Once you've finished installing all the hinges, get your reference drawing and the door list. Now, pull out the first few doors that you need and begin to install from the point where every previous step started. We have learned that starting from the top hinge is the easiest way to go, and we install only one screw per hinge at first, focusing on lining up the top edge with the top of the box and leaving a consistent 1/8 inch or 3 millimeter gap between the side edge of the door and the cabinet box edge. At this point, do not put the second screw in. One screw per hinge will allow for extra adjusting room later, when we are almost happy with the alignment. Continue installing all the doors using the same method. You could already try to adjust the hinges as you go, but we recommend that you wait until all doors are installed to do so. Installing a 90-degree bifold door requires some explanation. We want to determine first which of the two doors will get the knob and which one will be attached to the cabinet box. The hinge that looks like this one is the one we will use to connect the bifold doors together, and this other one is the one used to attach the doors to the cabinet boxes. Let's connect them together, first leaving a consistent 3 millimeter or 1/8 inch gap while keeping both doors with the edges flat against the floor. Let's temporarily separate them, unclipping the hinges until it is their turn to be attached. Let's start installing base doors from left to right, and always starting from the top hinge, with the bottom edge lined up with the bottom of the cabinet. Now it is time for the pre-mounted bifold doors to be installed. You can already start playing with the hinge adjustments, or leave them for later. In fine-tuning the door positions, the first single screw will allow for depth adjustment, and it will help to make the doors flush with each other when closed. This other screw will move the door from left to right. It will help to manage the gaps between doors. Releasing the two screws that hold the door will permit the door to be pushed up or down, and it has to be done at the same time for both hinges. Please note that we deliberately haven't used the second screw yet. Once you have done your first round of door adjustments, proceed with screwing the missing screw into all the upper hinge plates, putting it in the center of the plate slot. This step will cause the doors to shift a bit, requiring a final adjusting touch all around. Please understand that this step requires patience and shouldn't be done when you're too tired. Observe every movement the door makes when installing the screws. We recommend that these adjustments be done with hand screwdrivers. Even gaps and flush fronts are your ultimate goals. Here, we are showing how a door with regular hinges on an upper cabinet right above a peninsula can limit the access when we want to open that cabinet from the opposite side of the cooking area. With the use of 170-degree free-swinging special hinges, the problem is solved. drawer fronts are installed after the doors. In this job, we had to replace the drawer slides entirely with a new drawer system, but we want to show you what to do if you want to keep your old slides. Remove all the old fronts and put every old drawer box exactly back where it belongs to proceed with measuring. We start from the bottom, writing down all the measurements from the bottom edge of the box to the center of each hole. And then we measure the distance from the door beside it, subtracting the gap, about 3 millimeters, that we leave in between. Finish by measuring the distance between the left and right holes. Before transferring the measurements to the back of the drawer front, make sure you are not marking the front. It's easy to make mistakes, so be careful. Take your time in transferring the measurements. It's not difficult, but requires attention. Place the bottom drawer box on top of the drawer front, lining up the holes with the marks. At this point, you should already be able to notice if something is not right. Fasten the 4 screws, the usual number 6, 5/8 inch length, and slide the entire drawer into the cabinet box. After making sure it is straight and parallel with the door beside it, use it as a reference for the next set of measurements. Using the first drawer front as a reference, proceed as before, writing down measurements that will be transferred onto the next drawer front. By the time you get to the top drawer front, some adjustments will be required. Please remove the old slide tracks before starting. Let's find out the height of the bottom drawer front of this bank we are working on. Now, let's transfer that height onto the cabinet box and mark it with a pencil. It is important to mark the 3 millimeter or 1/8 inch necessary gap. From this mark, measure 1 3/4 inches and mark it. Once you have marked every drawer front height, always remembering the 3 millimeter or 1/8 inch gap, you can proceed adding the 1 3/4 inch mark starting from the bottom of every drawer front and repeat it. Repeat the same marks on the other wall of the cabinet box, and with a square, stretch the 1 3/4 inch mark lines. If you don't have a square, transfer the distance from the bottom to the back of the box, so the slides will be parallel through their entire extension. Proceed with the final marking, measuring 3/8 of an inch from the edge below every slide line. Position the first set of slides, starting from the bottom. Line them up with the 3/8 inch mark and fasten them with 2 screws per plate. Move to the next set of slides. The screws need to be fastened on the marked line. Repeat the procedure for every slide. Insert every pre-built box on each slide, pushing it all the way in until you hear a click. and then pull it to make sure that the soft closing system works properly. Make sure that drawer boxes with a tall back are positioned at the bottom. Insert T-brackets in every slide. Proceed measuring the distance from the bottom edge to both of the bracket holes, and sideways from the fronts beside it, minus the 3 mm needed for the gap. Rotating the screw on the slide, release the T-bracket. Once you have established the bottom edge, transfer the measurement obtained a few minutes earlier to the back of the drawer front. Using a small drill bit, like a 3/32 inch, pre-drill on the marks, going roughly a 1/4 inch deep. We recommend going slow and taping the bit with masking tape as a reference to avoid going too deep and so damaging the drawer front. The T-brackets come with their own screws. Clip the drawer front in the slides and check that it is straight. If not, the other screw on the slide will allow you to adjust it accordingly, up or down. Using this bottom drawer front as a starting point, and remembering the 3 mm gap, proceed repeating the same method for the other drawers. To install deep drawer extensions, measure 4.5 inches from the top of the slide and mark it. To obtain the precise drilling point, measure from the side edge of the drawer front to the center of the slide and mark it. Drill a shallow pilot hole with a small bit like a 3/32 inch. Don't take useless risk drilling too deep. Change the small drill bit for a 3/8 inch bit, marking it with a few rounds of masking tape that will be used as depth indicator for you to stop at 3/8 inch. If you are not an expert, use very little pressure. Even if it takes you longer, you won't be happy if you drill through the drawer front. This hole should line up with the center of the slide and 4.5 inches away from it. Open the package of parts for the bars and push the clip into the hole, screwing it clockwise all the way to the end without forcing. This will lock it firmly. Insert the bar in the back bracket and spin it clockwise until the bar extends and reaches the front clip. Slide the locking cap into place, and after adding the high box side, test that the drawer closes properly. Repeat the same steps for every slide of every deep drawer. We use masking tape to mark for drilling the handle holes because it makes the pencil more visible, and it will avoid the mess on the drawer front when trying to clean off the mark. Let's decide where you want the handle to be. There are no rules here, but we like to line up the bottom of the handle with the frame of the door and mark where the 2 holes should be. With the help of a measuring tape, find the center of the frame widthwise and mark it. Make sure you're happy with the position and get ready to transfer the same marks to every single door. With a combination square that you can buy at any hardware store, record the distance between the door edge and the lower hole, locking it with the wheel on the combination square. Once you make sure that it is firm, transfer this first distance to every single door. Record the second distance, block it, and transfer it to all the other doors. Finally, record the side distance and transfer it to every door. With a 3/16 inch drill bit, possibly with a brad point, and any piece of wood to be held against the back of the door to give you temporary leverage, proceed to drill on the marked points. Hold the piece of wood tightly against the door and drill without forcing the bit to prevent any ugly wood chipping on the other side of the hole. To prep for handles installation, Mike is inserting all the screws before end. We split this step, doing upper doors first and base doors afterwards. Doing it all in one shot will work as well. For the base doors, repeat the same process shown for the uppers. To drill for handles on drawer fronts, find the dead center and mark it on the tape. Then measure the distance between the two holes on the handle and divide it by 2. Adding the half distance to the marked center left and right will give you the horizontal position of the two holes. It never hurts to double check your markings. Before drilling, find the center height-wise for every drawer front. And yes, please double check one more time before drilling. When installing handles on flat panel drawer fronts, the standard 1-inch screws will be too long. Half-inch screws of the same thickness will solve the problem. This is how a typical refaced kitchen looks. We hope this video was clear enough, and we encourage you to reach out to us if you have specific questions regarding your project.